guys, what's up? Like the previous deck experience event, which detailed some ways on how to use the Jack Knights, now called the Mech Knights, which to this day I still can't stand the name. This time to work alongside the Flames of Destruction pack, which was released on January the 13th in the OCG, Konami is suggesting the best ways of using the deck, using the Elementsabers. Elementsaber special feature. They can call forth the Elemental Lord by changing their attributes in the graveyard. Flames of Destruction, on sale January 30th, 2018, contains the new series, Elementsaber, who fight by calling forth the Elemental Lords, who possess super powerful effects. Most of the Elementsabers have the effect during either turn to change their attribute in the graveyard, allowing you to set up the conditions to call Elemental Lords, and each of their effects help their allies, while there's also powerful spell and trap cards to support the series, whose effects allowed you to send monsters to the graveyard to allow for further moves. A Light Elemental Lord monster makes its debut. Once there's 5 light monsters gathered in your graveyard, you can special summon a Light Elemental Lord from your graveyard. When it's special summoned, its intense effect destroys all monsters your opponent controls. Fosserage the Elemental Lord is a light monster with 2800 attack and 2200 defense. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand by having exactly 5 light monsters in your graveyard. When this card is special summoned, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. You can only use this effect of Fosserage the Elemental Lord once per turn. If this face-up card leaves the field, skip the battle phase of your next turn. Now for the Elemental Lord monsters themselves. So far, Earth, Water, Fire and Wind Elemental Lord monsters have appeared. Each of them are level 8, with 2800 attack and 2200 defense. And Elemental Lord monsters of the said attribute need exactly 5 monsters of that specific attribute to special summon it. With high attack and intense effects, keep in mind if they leave the field, you skip your next battle phase effect when fighting with them. Search for Elemental Lord monsters that have appeared so far. Level 4 or lower Elementsaber monsters. The level of lower Elementsaber monsters have an effect to change their attributes in the graveyard to support special summoning Elemental Lord monsters. Let's introduce the common effect of the Elementsabers. Once per turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you can declare 1 attribute. This card in the graveyard becomes that attribute until the end of this turn. Each of them have another powerful effect, so let's have a look. Their individual effects are also strong. So the Earth one is Elementsaber Aina with 900 attack and 1800 defense. Its effect is, once per turn, you can special summon 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard. Elemental Lord then target 1 Elemental Lord monster in your graveyard except Elementsaber Aina. Special summon it, ignoring its conditions. Elementsaber Makani is the Wind attribute with 1300 attack and 1200 defense. Its effect is, once per turn, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, add 1 Elemental Lord monster from your deck to your hand, except Elementsaber Makahani. Elementsaber Nalu is the Water one with 1500 attack and 1000 defense. Its effect is, once per turn, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 Elemental Lord monster in your graveyard, except a copy of itself, Elementsaber Nalu, add it to your hand. The Fire one is Elementsaber Malo with 1700 attack and 200 defense. Its effect is, once per turn, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, Send one Elemental Lord monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Elementsaber Marloho. The light version is Elementsaber Lapa Ula with 400 attack and 2100 defense. Its effect is, once per turn when a spell or trap card is activated as a quick effect, you can send one Element Lord or Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard and negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. The last one is the dark one. It's Elementsaber Molahu with 1900 attack and 0 defense. Its effect is, once per turn, as a quick effect, you can send one Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster on the field, change it to face-down defense position. Now, we also have one quite unusual Elementsaber. It's actually a level 6. It can special summon itself from the hand and has powerful effects that protect Elementsabers and Elemental Lords. This is Elementsaber Willard. It's got 2400 attack and 2100 defense, and it's a light attribute monster. Its first effect is, you can send 2 other monsters from your hand to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Elementsaber Willard once per turn. 2. Apply the appropriate effects to Elementsaber and Elemental Lord monsters you control, depending on the original attributes of the Elementsaber monsters sent to the graveyard to activate this card's effect. Earth or wind, they cannot be destroyed by battle. Water or fire, they cannot be destroyed by card effects. Light or dark, your opponent cannot target them with card effects. Now, out of these effects, probably the most effective is the water, fire, light, and dark. Out of everything, Earth and Wind with the Battle Destruction is not that relevant, considering you have other cards that can substitute for that type of effect. You have, for example, Safe Zone, which can prevent Battle Destruction. You also have the equipped spell Mist Body, which does the exact same thing. It says also pay attention to spell and trap cards that strongly support these series. These 2 support cards that make their debut are strong, so let's check them out. Send Elementsaber monsters from the deck to the hand or graveyard. Besides supporting deployment, it has an intense effect that strengthens monsters. This is Temple of the Elemental Lords. This is their field spell. All monsters you control gain 200 attack and defense for every different attribute among the monsters in your graveyard. Once per turn, you can add one Elementsaber monster from your deck to your hand, then skip the battle phase of your next turn, even if this card leaves the field. 3. Once per turn, if an Elementsaber monster you control or in your hand would activate an effect by sending a card from the hand to the graveyard, you can send an Elementsaber monster from your deck to the graveyard instead. The first effect enables your monsters to have a maximum of 1200 attack points. Reason being, there are 6 attributes. 6 times 200 is 1200. So even if you're looking at some of the weakest ones, the water one has like 400 attack. It'll become 1600. The second effect, the skipping of the battle phase, is not too big of a problem. If your Elemental Lord has been destroyed on that turn anyway, you're going to skip your battle phase no matter what. You might as well just search for an Elementsaber to add to your consistency. And even if you don't want to use that, even if you're choosing that, maybe you have some more time or advantage to afford skipping your battle phase, it's advisable to do so, just to add to your hand. The final effect lets you discard for the cost from the deck to the graveyard instead of your hand. This means you're not wasting resources that can be difficult to draw into, and also it enables you to set up your graveyard nicely to get the 5 of whichever specific attribute you're currently working for. The final card is the Trap card. It protects Temple of the Elemental Lords and deploys Elementsabers. It also lets you go on the offensive by adding Elemental Lords from your graveyard to your hand. This is Element Training. It is a continuous trap card that says, 1. Your opponent cannot target Temple of the Elemental Lords you control with card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. 2. Once per turn, you contribute 1 monster. Special summon 1 Elementsaber monster from your deck with a different original attribute from that monster's. 3. You can send this face-up card to the graveyard, discard your entire hand, and add 1 Elemental Lord monsters from your graveyard to your hand equal to the number of cards you discarded. Now, for the first effect, this basically protects your field spell. It prevents that from being targeted or dealt with by any effects at all. They have to get rid of this Element Training Trap card first before they ever get the chance to use to destroy the field spell, which means they have to essentially destroy something twice. The second effect lets you replace a monster that you currently have with an Elementsaber. Perhaps you're splashing in some effect monsters of certain attributes because you might like their effect. They might have something that's useful. For example, take for example the wind attribute. You've got Armored Bee that can half your opponent's attack points from one of their monsters. You might want to splash something like that in. So that's good for that if and when you're done with their effects. The final effect is more of a, once you've gotten the best out of this card, you might as well get rid of it. Add your Elemental Lords, change the attributes of the monsters in your graveyard, and then you proceed to destroy your opponent. I want to know as well, what kind of deck will you be making combining the various cards? It advertises Flames of Destruction. Of course, it includes cards from the animated series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, but this core pack, the 4th of the 2018 fiscal year, contains cards vital for all duelists, also powerful cards for the Trickstars, used by Blue Angel, and the Goki, used by Go Onizuka. Also, there's plenty of cards used by the protagonist and his rivals. There's many other cards worth paying attention to, between themes making their debut and cards that strengthen existing decks. I will leave a link in the description to the source of this information, as it contains a video which is like a guide on its own about the Elementsabers and the Elemental Lords. However, the only trouble is this is in Japanese, and so unless you can understand, don't bother clicking the link. Personally, I can't wait for the Elementsabers to come out. I know most people are excited for the consistency they provide to the Elemental Lords, whilst making them very simplistic for even beginner duelists to understand how to play them, with the graveyard manipulation being the easiest to work with. Beforehand, you need a degree of skill to determine and manage exactly 5 of a particular attribute monster in your graveyard. I like it for the overall attribute support they provide. As someone who likes to play attribute-style decks that work with a variety of effects and monsters, this is something I would encourage, and makes the overall experience more entertaining, as opposed to your cookie-cutter decks, or those that have constant spamming effects. What do you think of the Elementsabers? Are they what was needed to fix the Elemental Lords, or is this attribute manipulation effect far too generic, so that anyone and their mother can use them? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and as always, thank you for taking the time to watch this.